Welcome back to Actor Secrets. What do you think when the biggest television network in America spends $9.5 million just to kick out its lead actress, Eliza Dushku? This contract was created to cover up the terrible behavior of a powerful male actor, Michael Weatherly, right on set. Hundreds of people witnessed it, but all turned a blind eye. When the veteran actress decided to fight back, she was immediately removed from the project. The incident would have stayed in the dark forever if an accidental leak had not exposed everything. The secret surfaced during a corporate earthquake. In the fall of 2018, CBS launched an internal investigation targeting their former chief executive officer, Les Moonves. Elite auditors and legal teams tore through the company's private financial records. The investigators spent months digging through buried corporate paperwork, hunting for evidence of executive misconduct. Deep inside those guarded accounting files, these auditors struck a nerve. They uncovered a confidential executed settlement check written out for $9.5 million. The sheer scale of the American television industry turns millions of dollars into loose change. CBS operates as one of the big three legacy broadcasting networks in the United States. The network runs a multi-billion-dollar global empire built on primetime ratings, syndication deals, and lucrative advertising contracts. For a corporate giant generating billions in annual revenue, paying out a few $1 million in hush money functions as a standard business expense, executives use their vast bank accounts to scrub scandals and keep their nightly programming schedule running smoothly. This specific transaction, however, caught the auditor's eyes because of the famous name attached to the payout. Eliza Dushku received that fortune. She arrived on the CBS studio lot carrying 30 years of hard-won, respected industry experience. Millions of fans watched her grow up on camera, dominating the screen in some of the biggest pop culture hits of the past 3 decades. The actress stood toe-to-toe with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the action blockbuster True Lies. She helped define a generation of television, bringing fierce energy to the cultural phenomenon Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Dushku ruled the teen movie era as the sharp cheerleader in Bring It On. The rising star stepped up to lead her own intense science fiction series with Dollhouse. She spent her life building a rock-solid reputation as a talented, reliable, and dedicated professional. That flawless track record explains why the highest-level CBS executives aggressively pursued her in 2017. The corporate leaders wanted her established star power and her built-in audience to elevate their new primetime legal drama, Bull. The network courted her, negotiated with her team, and handed the veteran actress an ironclad 6-year contract to serve as the co-lead of the series. For any working actor in Hollywood, securing a 6-year leading role on a legacy network represents the pinnacle of television success. It guarantees unprecedented career stability and immense public visibility. She signed the paperwork and walked onto that set prepared to deliver the powerhouse performance the network paid her for. Then, the executives paid the full value of that 6-year contract up front, totaling $9.5 million, just to physically remove her from the property. The handlers handed Eliza Dushku a staggering fortune to make her disappear. That $9.5 million figure represented the salary she would have earned if she had stayed on the show and filmed the remaining 4 seasons of her contract. CBS bought out her remaining time. The corporate giant terminated her hard-earned position to banish her from the television show they had just begged her to lead. Snatching away a role like that sends a chilling message to the rest of the industry. They sacrificed a seasoned veteran of the craft for one specific calculated reason. The studio executed this financial cover-up to protect Michael Weatherly. If you watch primetime network television on a weeknight, you know the level of power this man holds. Weatherly reigned supreme as the golden boy of the CBS network. He spent over a full decade anchoring NCIS, a procedural drama that consistently ranked as the most watched television show on the planet. Millions of viewers tuned in every single week to watch him play a charming investigator. The network spent years building this heroic public persona, marketing him as the ultimate good guy to middle America. The star brought in record-breaking ratings, global viewership, and mountains of advertising revenue year after year. The executives rewarded his financial success by giving him his very own spin-off series, Bull. He functioned as the undisputed king of their primetime drama lineup. Michael Weatherly was their rainmaker, their most valuable asset, and the man keeping the studio lights on. When a male television star generates hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate revenue, the broadcasting network treats him like untouchable royalty. The executives sitting in their glass corner offices in New York and Los Angeles prioritize the bottom line above every other factor. These leaders look at the financial spreadsheets, the viewership demographics, and the quarterly profit margins. The corporate machine makes cold, ruthless business decisions designed to protect the asset, bringing in the highest ratings. The network bosses looked directly at the toxic, hostile behavior unfolding on the set of Bull. They saw their golden boy acting out of control, and they made a calculated corporate choice. The decision makers chose to protect their financial investment. They sacrificed the female co-lead to keep the king of the network happy and comfortable. This settlement exposes the standard operating procedure of the American entertainment industry. Corporate human resources departments present the illusion of protecting employees from workplace abuse. Public relations teams preach about accountability and safe professional environments. This buried contract proves that the rules of basic human decency vanish when dealing with the leading men bringing in the primetime ratings. The executives weaponize their corporate wealth to buy silence and enforce compliance. The network prioritized the male star's ego and the advertising revenue over a woman's fundamental right to a safe professional workspace. The leaders buried the dark truth in secret legal paperwork, handing out millions of dollars to leave behind a legacy of corporate corruption that they intended to keep hidden from the public forever. CBS executives paid out that settlement because they were trapped by their own equipment. The network possessed undeniable audio and video proof of the toxic behavior. Studio microphones and outtake footage captured the harassment as it happened. The network lawyers looked at the files and realized they were sitting on a ticking time bomb. The legal team held irrefutable evidence of their leading man running a hostile workplace. When Eliza Dushku arrived on the set of Bull for her first week of work, she walked straight into an entrenched boys' club. In the high-pressure ecosystem of network television, crews endure grueling 14-hour days, budgets stay tight, and stress levels run high. A toxic culture frequently develops in these environments. Men pass off offensive locker room humor as necessary stress relief, The crew convinces themselves that inappropriate jokes serve as a harmless way to blow off steam. The leading man ultimately sets the tone for the entire production. When the star makes a crude joke, the crew is expected to laugh along. That remains the unspoken survival rule of Hollywood. Michael Weatherly weaponized this dynamic to establish immediate dominance over his new female co-star. The harassment played out in front of a live audience. Network television sets function as incredibly crowded spaces. Roughly 100 crew members stand around the immediate filming area at any given moment. Lighting technicians, camera operators, makeup artists, and directors all occupy the exact same soundstage. Weatherly launched his verbal assaults right out in the open, aware of the 100 people watching his every move. The leading man wanted an audience. He needed the crew to witness him breaking down the powerful new actress. The CBS star stripped away her authority from day one. Instead of using her actual name or acknowledging her industry track record, he repeatedly and loudly referred to her as Legs. Reducing an experienced professional down to a single body part destroys her status. Weatherly forced the entire crew to view her as a physical object placed on the set for his personal amusement. The actor escalated this behavior by invading her personal space. He would lean in close and deliberately sniff her in front of the production team. To push the boundaries even further, he bragged about his manhood, turning a professional soundstage into a hyper-sexualized frat house. The leading man forced everyone around him to participate in his uncomfortable reality. The verbal degradation quickly crossed the line into explicit territory. The most horrifying incident involved a running joke about a specific vehicle. Weatherly publicly joked about dragging Dushku into a rape van. He painted a vivid, disturbing picture for the crew, explicitly detailing how this imaginary van was stocked full of lubricants and various phallic objects. The bright studio lights illuminated a grown man standing in front of his colleagues, describing a mobile torture chamber designed specifically for his female co-star. This functioned as a calculated psychological attack designed to make a woman feel profoundly unsafe in her own workplace. The television star used physical violence as a punchline, testing how much abuse the network would tolerate. The humiliation campaign also relied on infantilization. Predators often seek to strip away a woman's adult agency, reducing her to the status of a helpless child. During another documented incident on the set, Weatherly looked at the veteran actress and publicly announced his intention to take her over his knee. The actor stated loudly that he would spank her like a little girl. He delivered this threat disguised as a joke right in the middle of their working environment. This specific comment served a dual purpose. It threatened physical violence while simultaneously destroying her professional dignity. Maintaining authority as a fierce leading character becomes impossible when the star of the show openly talks about punishing you like a disobedient toddler in front of the camera crew. The Golden Boy also tried to humiliate her through public sexual propositions. In a staggering display of arrogance, Weatherly openly suggested a three-way sexual encounter involving himself, Dushku, and another male co-star. He stood in front of the production team and reduced her decades of acting experience down to a crude sexual fantasy. Eliza had to navigate a barrage of explicit propositions while simply trying to memorize her lines and hit her marks. Every time the actress tried to focus on her performance, her co-star threw another sexually explicit comment in her direction, deliberately sabotaging her ability to work in peace. The deafening silence of the bystanders makes this timeline even more chilling. Every time he made a joke about the van, every time he threatened to spank her, and every time he called her legs, roughly 100 crew members stood there in silence. Camera operators kept checking their focus. Audio mixers kept adjusting their dials. Producers sitting in their video villages stared at their monitors and acted as if everything was perfectly normal. The employees heard the jokes. The bystanders saw the discomfort on her face. The studio microphones recorded the evidence. The entire production machine chose to protect the rainmaker. The silence of the crew speaks volumes about the hierarchy of power on a television set. Those 100 employees relied on the success of the show to pay their mortgages and feed their families. The staff knew that speaking up against the leading man would result in their immediate termination. The system relies on this fear to keep the boys' club running smoothly. The crew members become silent accomplices, forced to swallow their own moral compasses to survive in the industry. The workers watch a woman get verbally abused day after day, and they learn to simply look down at the floor and pretend they heard nothing. When confronted with these incidents, the standard defense mechanism of the boys' club immediately activates. Perpetrators claim they were just joking around. The abusers argue the victim lacks a sense of humor or fails to appreciate the chaotic, fun-loving nature of a television set. They use the concept of comedy as an impenetrable shield. Comedy, however, requires mutual participation. When one person laughs while the other person feels threatened, the situation transforms into harassment. Weatherly used the excuse of trying to lighten the mood to disguise his predatory behavior as harmless fun. The leading man relied on the ingrained culture of the set to validate his actions, expecting his female co-star to simply smile and endure the abuse. The outtake footage captured a reality that Hollywood PR firms spend millions of dollars trying to hide. The tapes captured a beloved television hero operating as a relentless workplace bully. They documented a system where a leading man can threaten a woman with violence, brag about his manhood, and humiliate her in front of 100 silent witnesses, all while earning a massive network paycheck. The network executives watched those tapes. The corporate leaders heard the van comments. They saw the public degradation. Instead of firing the man responsible for the hostile environment, the bosses reached for their checkbook. On a profitable television set, bad behavior gets actively financed. Those million-dollar checks only happen when a giant company feels cornered. The network pulled out their checkbook because Eliza Dushku broke the unspoken rule of Hollywood. The actress stood up for herself. The cameras caught all the gross behavior, sure, but the real chaos started the moment she decided to fight back. Landing a 6-year contract on a major show provides the kind of stability actors dream about. Eliza showed up ready to work hard, only to face a co-star making her life miserable every single day. She handled it exactly how a mature professional adult should handle any workplace problem. Dushku pulled Michael Weatherly aside for a private conversation. She took him away from the crowded set, away from the cameras and the crew, and looked him in the eye. The veteran actress asked for basic respect. She laid down her boundaries. The determined star calmly asked him to stop the weird comments and the uncomfortable jokes so they could both focus on making a good television show. The professional wanted to clear the air, keep things professional, and move forward. Eliza gave him the chance to act like a normal colleague. A normal person would feel embarrassed, apologize, and back off. Weatherly took a different route. The television star felt threatened. A woman asking for basic respect felt like a direct attack on his authority. He hated hearing the word no. So the golden boy went straight over her head. He walked right past the usual human resources channels. Weatherly took his complaints directly to the very top, straight to the president of CBS television studios. The content of his complaint reveals a classic manipulation tactic. He told the boss she lacked a sense of humor. In any workplace, telling a woman she lacks a sense of humor is the oldest trick in the book. It shifts all the blame. Suddenly, the guy making the terrible jokes becomes the fun, easygoing dude, just trying to make the workday better. The woman who just wants to do her job in peace gets labeled as the uptight, difficult buzzkill. Weatherly used that specific phrase to turn the executives against her, painting his co-star as a problem for the production instead of a victim of his behavior. This brings us to a pervasive issue in the American corporate world known as workplace retaliation. On paper, every company tells employees to speak up if something makes them uncomfortable. Corporations print it in the employee handbooks and talk about it during orientation. The Human Resources Department promises protection, but in reality, especially when money is on the line, the system turns against the person speaking up. Retaliation happens when someone reports a problem, and the company decides getting rid of the whistleblower is easier than fixing the actual issue. The system isolates the victim to protect the person making the money. It happens in offices everywhere, and it happens on Hollywood sets. The company protects the revenue stream, and everyone else becomes disposable. Once Weatherly took his complaint to the executives, the retaliation happened at lightning speed. The showrunner of Bull, a guy named Glenn Gordon Caron, stepped in. The showrunner acts as the ultimate boss on set. These producers write the scripts, manage the storylines, and decide who stays on the show. Caron heard his main star was unhappy, and he moved incredibly fast to fix the problem. Within a matter of days after that private conversation, Dushku found herself written out of the story. The timeline of her dismissal defies logic. She walked onto that lot with an ironclad contract to co-lead the show for 6 years. The actress was ready to build the next chapter of her career. A few days after asking her co-star to be polite, she was packing up her stuff and handing over her security badge. The writers simply erased her character. The network derailed her career because she asked a grown man to behave professionally. The executives looked at a toxic work environment and decided to fire the target rather than discipline their star. It shows exactly who holds the real power in that building. Years later, this mess finally blew up in the public eye. The New York Times ran a story exposing the secret settlement and the behind-the-scenes drama. When the reporters cornered Weatherly for a comment, he played the same card he used back on set. The actor gave a polished statement claiming he was only joking around. He told the press he was trying to bring fun and energy to a stressful television shoot. Weatherly brushed off months of targeted harassment as a simple misunderstanding. He made it sound like a goofy guy making a silly mistake, ignoring the damage he caused. The leading man also washed his hands of her firing. He told the newspaper he only shared his feelings with the network executives. The CBS star claimed he lacked any idea the showrunner planned to fire her. That is how soft power works in the entertainment industry. The big star avoids firing anyone directly. They skip writing the termination email and avoid looking the person in the eye. The actor complains to the right executives, plays the victim, and lets the corporate machine do the dirty work. The system allows the star to keep their hands clean while destroying someone else's livelihood. Eliza Dushku did everything by the book. She acted like a professional. The veteran actress handled a nightmare situation with grace and directness. The industry punished her for it. The network looked at the situation, pulled out a pile of money, and bought her silence just to keep their leading man happy. It sends a terrifying message to anyone working in the business. If an employee challenges the main star, the system will erase them, pay them to go away, and let the guy causing the problem walk right back onto the set the very next day, acting like nothing ever happened. Getting fired was just the opening move in a much larger game. Once the network executives physically removed Eliza Dushku from the studio lot, they needed a foolproof way to keep her quiet permanently. Getting kicked off a show is one thing, but allowing a fired actor to speak to the press about a toxic work environment is a corporate nightmare. CBS immediately dragged her into a secret, restrictive legal process called forced arbitration. If an individual signs an employment contract for a new job, they often agree to this exact setup without reading the fine print. Forced arbitration acts as a private, shadow courtroom designed specifically to protect massive companies. The victim does not get to stand before a real judge. The employee does not get a jury of regular people listening to their side of the story. The press is strictly locked out of the building, and every single document generated during the process gets buried in a sealed vault. Corporations love this system because it keeps their ugliest scandals hidden from the public eye. CBS pulled Eliza into a windowless conference room where the executives controlled the rules, the money, and the entire narrative. Inside that locked room, the network lawyers went straight on the attack. Instead of addressing the horrible things their star actor actually said on tape, the legal team flipped the script. The attorneys went after Dushku personally. They brought printed, blown-up photos from her personal Instagram account to the mediation table. The lawyers pointed to casual, everyday pictures of her wearing a swimsuit while on a private vacation with her friends. These expensive corporate representatives sat across the table, looked a 30-year acting veteran in the eye, and argued that posting bikini photos made her a naturally provocative person. The defense team spun an insulting story suggesting that her social media presence somehow invited the sexual jokes on set. The legal team took a woman who had carried global television franchises and reduced her entire worth down to a couple of vacation pictures. The lawyers weaponized her own life against her, all to protect a male star who couldn't keep his behavior in check. The emotional toll of facing that kind of aggressive victim blaming is staggering. Dushku reportedly spent days breaking down, crying alone in her hotel room after those sessions. The actress felt isolated and betrayed by the exact same television network that had begged her to join their cast just a few months earlier. The corporate lawyers wanted to break her spirit. The network representatives wanted to make the process so painful and humiliating that she would just give up and walk away. So why did she finally sign the non-disclosure agreement and accept the $9.5 million settlement? It all comes down to the invisible, terrifying threat hanging over every working actor in Hollywood. The reality of the blacklist dictates survival. The blacklist operates as an unspoken agreement among elite studio executives, producers, and casting directors. If Dushku had walked out of that arbitration room, rejected the settlement money, and dragged CBS into a public lawsuit, her career would have hit a brick wall instantly. Word travels incredibly fast in the entertainment business. Hollywood is basically a small town run by a few powerful people who all eat at the same restaurants and play at the same golf courses. Executives at other major networks would immediately label her as a corporate headache. The studios would brand her as the difficult, problematic actress who sues her bosses and causes expensive public relations disasters. The threat hanging in the air of that conference room was loud and clear. Take the money, sign the non-disclosure agreement, and stay quiet. Refuse, and the network will use its industry influence to make sure you never book another leading television role again. The executives backed her into a psychological corner where taking the settlement became her only real option to survive in the business she loved. That check acted as a ransom payment for her future career. But the absolute worst part of this whole scandal did not happen inside a corporate boardroom. It happened right out in the open on the internet, and it was driven by her own peers. When whispers of the toxic set and the payout finally leaked to the press, society would naturally hope the women of Hollywood would stand together. The public expects basic industry solidarity. Instead, the exact opposite happened. Actresses Polly Perrette and Sasha Alexander, two prominent women who had worked with Weatherly on NCIS for years, immediately jumped on social media to defend him. The former co-stars fired off tweets to their millions of followers, calling him a great friend, a wonderful man, and a total joy to work with. The damage caused by that reaction is devastating to a victim. A woman risks her career and her mental health to call out a workplace predator, and other women rush in to shield the guy. It instantly destroys the victim's credibility. It gives the abuser a shiny, bulletproof vest in the court of public opinion. When the general public sees those supportive tweets from former female co-stars, they naturally assume the victim must be lying. Audiences assume Dushku must be overreacting to a simple joke because these other successful women claim he is a great guy. This dynamic shows exactly how deep the loyalty to the Hollywood Boys Club really goes. Industry insiders will actively protect the man holding all the power, even if it means throwing another woman right under the bus. In the cutthroat world of network television, protecting your own job, maintaining your industry connections, and staying on the good side of a star always trumps doing the right thing. Dushku had to sit back and watch her own colleagues publicly validate the man who harassed her. She was left holding a settlement check in silence, while the man who ruined her dream job got to keep his primetime crown and his massive paycheck. While the network and her former co-stars rallied hard to protect the golden boy, not everyone in Hollywood was willing to play along with the corporate cover-up. When the details of that $9.5 million settlement finally leaked to the press, it sent shockwaves through the highest tiers of the entertainment industry. The people with actual, undeniable power, the kind of power that dwarfs a primetime television actor, started paying very close attention. Steven Spielberg, arguably the most influential director in the history of cinema, saw what was happening behind the scenes at CBS. His respected production company, Amblin Television, was attached to produce Bull. The legendary director's company was supposed to be a major financial partner in this profitable primetime venture. But the moment the ugly truth about the Hostel set and the hush money came to light, Spielberg did not issue a weak public relations statement. He did not jump on social media to defend the guy making the awful jokes. The visionary filmmaker made a definitive business move. He immediately pulled his entire company out of the project. Amblin Television cut all ties with the television show and walked away from the profits. It was a public slap in the face to the network executives. It sent a crystal clear message that true industry heavyweights were not going to attach their legendary name to a deeply toxic production. As for Eliza Dushku, she took that settlement check and made a personal choice that defied the standard Hollywood playbook. She did not sit around her house waiting for the quiet, unspoken blacklist to ruin her life. The veteran actress did not spend her time desperately begging network executives for a second chance to appear on their screens. She simply packed her bags and walked away from the toxic ecosystem. Eliza left the flashing lights and the intense pressure of Los Angeles behind and moved back to her roots in Boston. She traded the stressful sound stages for a different path, diving headfirst into higher education. Dushku went back to school to study holistic psychology and even began exploring the emerging complex field of psychedelic-assisted therapy. Instead of letting a hostile work environment break her spirit, she reinvented herself. The resilient survivor shifted her entire life focus toward healing trauma, not just for herself, but for others who have suffered. She took back her power by leaving the Hollywood game on her own terms. The actress proved to everyone that her personal worth and her future were never going to be defined by a television contract or a network executive. But her incredible story did not quietly fade away into a peaceful, private retirement. The nightmare she endured on that studio lot ended up sparking a permanent shift in American law. Dushku eventually realized that the secret, locked-door system of forced arbitration was not just a unique Hollywood problem. It was a brutal corporate weapon actively used against millions of regular American workers across every single industry in the country. Waitresses, office workers, and retail employees were all being forced into these same secret rooms by their massive corporate bosses. In 2021, Eliza decided to take her fight all the way to Washington. She stood right before the United States Congress and bravely testified about her horrific experience. The former actress pulled back the heavy curtain on exactly how giant corporations use secret arbitration clauses to silence terrified victims and aggressively protect workplace abusers. Her public testimony put an undeniable spotlight on a rigged legal loophole that had survived in the shadows for decades, and her courage actually worked. Her voice, fueled by her own traumatic experience, helped push a piece of federal legislation across the finish line. In 2022, President Joe Biden officially signed the Ending Forced Arbitration of Sexual Assault and Sexual Harassment Act into federal law. This was a monumental historic victory for the American workforce. Because of this specific law, companies can no longer force their employees into secret locked-door arbitration rooms when they report workplace harassment. Corporations cannot hide their dirty laundry in the corporate shadows anymore. An awful ordeal that started with crude, humiliating jokes on a primetime television set ultimately dismantled one of the most powerful corporate shields in the entire country. Eliza Dushku lost her television job, but she ultimately protected millions of everyday American workers from enduring the exact same nightmare. When the director yells "cut," the cameras stop rolling, but the trauma for actresses like Eliza Dushku does not. What we have just seen is proof of a toxic power dynamic where art becomes a shield for abusers like Michael Weatherly, and silence is bought with fame. It is time for the truth to be heard. What are your thoughts on this dark reality? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to Actor Secrets as we continue to expose the dark side of Hollywood. Thanks for watching.